Trump just gave Iran an ultimatum. Comply by 8 p.m. tonight, or face what he called the end of a civilization. That's not just aggressive rhetoric. That's escalation language. But here is the reality. He is probably not going to follow through. And paradoxically, that does not mean things are calming down. It means the war is entering a more dangerous phase. Let's break down what actually happened in the last 24 hours. The U.S. carried out strikes on Kharg Island, Iran's most important oil hub. At the same time, Israel hit rail infrastructure. Inside Iran, targeting logistics, not just military assets. And then Trump issues this deadline. So you have got real military action already underway. Infrastructure being targeted. And then this massive rhetorical escalation layered on top. That combination is not random. It's a pattern. If you have been watching Trump's foreign policy style, this should feel familiar. Step 1. He issues a maximalist threat, something extreme, time-bound, and very public. Step 2. The deadline approaches. And then one of two things happens. The deadline gets extended, or the response is smaller than advertised. And then step 3. He claims success anyway. This has happened repeatedly in trade policy, in military signaling, and now, again, with Iran. So when you hear end of a civilization, you have to separate signal from intent. Here is the key insight. Trump's actions matter more than his words. And right now, his actions are actually more restrained than his rhetoric. Look at Kharg Island. This is not just any target hit. Handles the majority of Iran's crude exports. If the U.S. wanted to deliver a true economic shock, they would hit the export infrastructure directly. But they did not. They targeted military assets on the island, not the oil terminals themselves. That's a very deliberate choice, because once you hit oil exports directly, you are escalating with the entire global energy market. So, what's the strategy here? It looks like a classic coercive pressure approach. Build military pressure, signal willingness to escalate, but hold back from the most extreme actions. Why? Because that gives you leverage. Kharg Island becomes a threat point, not just a target. The U.S. can say, implicitly, we can shut down your oil exports, but we have not yet. That's far more useful in negotiations than actually pulling the trigger immediately. Now let's talk about the deadline itself. Will Trump actually follow through? Highly unlikely. There are a few reasons for that. First, striking civilian infrastructure, things like power plants or transport networks, comes with serious legal and political risks. Second, there is already pushback, even from within his own political base, about expanding the scope of targets. And third, he does not need to follow through, because the combination of threats, limited strikes, and ongoing pressure achieves his objectives. So the most likely outcome is, the deadline gets extended, or the response is calibrated and limited, and it's framed as a tactical success. Now flip to Iran's perspective. Why have they not conceded? Because, strategically, they don't have to. Right now, Iran likely believes it can sustain the conflict for months, absorb infrastructure damage, and continue military operations. There is also a domestic angle. Strikes on infrastructure can actually strengthen internal support for the regime. And internationally, it helps Iran build a narrative that it's being targeted unfairly, especially around the Strait of Hormuz. So from Tehran's perspective, there is very little incentive to back down right now. Here is where things get counterintuitive. If Trump does not follow through, you might think that's de-escalation. It's not. Because we are seeing a shift toward sustained, controlled escalation. Instead of one big shock event, you get repeated strikes, targeted infrastructure attacks, gradual economic pressure. This kind of conflict is slower, but in many ways, more dangerous, because it's harder to contain. So what should you be watching going forward? There are 3 key indicators. First, oil infrastructure targeting. Second, Iranian retaliation in the Gulf. We have already seen this pattern with attacks on regional energy assets. Third, the Strait of Hormuz. This is the ultimate pressure point. Anything that disrupts flows, there changes the global energy equation. So let's bring it all together. Trump's deadline, mostly a signaling tool. Will he back off the most extreme version of it? Probably. But that does not mean the situation is stabilizing. It means we are entering a phase where military pressure continues. The risk is no longer just a single dramatic event. It's a slow build toward something much bigger, and those are often the conflicts that last the longest.